Good day everyone, it's very damp, humid and raining here, so it's certainly a good day. I hope it is where you are as well. What we have to go over this new week on this Monday is the further information related to the new system that will drive the new patch. Now, players at this point have displayed some signs of systems fatigue, the annoyance and reluctance on joining Blizzard's systems introduced in the games recently. Some people even referred to Shadowlands in a very not so nice way. That was not very cool of you, but refer to it as Systemlands, referring to all of the stuff that was tied to different types of currencies and activities that you had to gain to do whatever you wanted to do in the game. So what we have in 9.2 is this new thing that we haven't touched too much on, simply because we don't know too much on. We have been told it's gonna be in the game, and we have been explained how it's going to touch many of the things we're gonna be doing in the new zone, but we don't have too much more than that, which is the Cypher of the first one's system. So, yes, it is going to be a new system, but let's just come in defense of this thing for one moment before we actually go and start wondering about this thing, which is the fact that even though we are getting this new system, we are losing plenty of previous ones, because the soul cinders and the soul ash for crafting legendaries is going to be gone. That's not going to be a system you will need, and that's not going to be an activity you will need to run anymore, because from the next patch, Torghast is basically going to be an accessory. It's going to be a cosmetic side activity, no longer tied with rewards. Although I guess we can still put the question mark of what's going to happen to the conduit upgrade item that you could get from Torghast. Perhaps it's still going to be there, so perhaps Torghast might not fully go into a cosmetic only side activity. It will still have a tiny bit of power at the end, but let's just assume that is also going away. So we are losing that chunk of systems in Shadowlands. We are also losing the Shards of Domination. At this point, I guess it's rather safe, considering there is going to be this new Cypher system and there are going to be tier sets as part of your gear enhancement. We can also assume that the Shadow Domination system is going to go away, so that's another system that's gonna die before this new patch. And even though I'm pretty sure it's going to be replaced by something similar, we are also gonna leave behind Stygia and Artifact Research that we have gotten in both the Maw and in Cortia, and very likely things like the redeemed souls to collect to upgrade your buildings, considering there's not going to be any building upgrades in this new patch. There's not going to be any more reason for you to do that. Even easier now that this redeemed souls quest is repeatable. You can pretty much get it done before the patch comes, and once the patch is out, you don't have to worry about that anymore. So, as a recap, yes, the Cypher of the first ones is going to be a new system, but we are losing a decent bunch of systems along the way. Now, some other people might complain about the fact that this cyclic change of systems, patch in and patch out, is also annoying. It's not just the amount of systems you're getting, but also the fact that you already know they are going to last pretty much one patch and then they're going to disappear. Take, for example, in mind something like the Benthic gear system that we had in the Eternal Palace patch, in BFA, the corruption system that we have gotten in Nyalotha as well. Those were similar short-lived systems that only essentially existed for one patch. So we are getting somewhat similar systems in Shadowlands, but at the very least, they're not stacking up and they are not increasing, especially because it looks like this Cypher of the old ones systems is going to essentially be a repository for a multitude of systems. Many people often complained that the previous systems we have gotten in the game were very scattered, so they had no connection with each other. There wasn't a main hub where you could manage all of them, for example. You know, there was no attachment whatsoever between the grateful offerings you needed to earn for cosmetic rewards and the soul ash you needed to get in Torghast, and at the same time the archivist research that you needed to get in Cortia, while you also needed to get the Shards of Domination in the raid. So they were all completely detached and isolated from each other. They had no connection whatsoever. It looks like, on the other hand, that with this new patch, Blizzard is somewhat putting together this system to have multiple rewards and multiple things you need to go for, all generating from this single activity. Because We have known from the original announcement that, for example, one of the things that's gonna happen in this system is the ability to equip 2 legendaries, right? We also know that it's gonna take a while before you get them. My general idea for this is that it's gonna come right after the race for world first in the mythic raiding progression is gonna be over. Somewhere around 2 to 3 weeks into the patch, it's when you're gonna be able to equip your second legendary. That's my guess. But we also know that this system is also what is going to tie in the tier sets, because sure, some players are going to be able to benefit, some players are going to be very lucky with their loot and just receive their tier sets from the raid, and they're going to be fine. But there's going to be plenty others who will not be raiding or who will not have the opportunity to raid at the hardest and highest item level reward difficulty, which is mythic, and they will also be able to gain and obtain their tier sets through this new Cypher of the First Ones system. Because the twist to these returning tier sets that we left pretty much in Legion, that's the last time we had proper tier sets in the game, was the ability to also get them from Zereth Mortis, from this system. Because through the Cypher of the First Ones, you will be able to craft any item, so whatever item you have, into a tier set piece. This means very simply that all players will be able to benefit from the tier sets, even if you don't plan to raid. As they pointed out before, in case anyone is going to get disappointed, this is supposed to be some sort of catch-up mechanism / bad luck protection system for gearing, in the sense that it's still going to be faster if you just clear the raid every week and you simply straight up drop and loot these tier set items, rather than having to wait for you to be able to craft them through this system or to get them from the Great Vault, which is also another way in which you will be able to obtain tier sets. But it is still going to be part of this Cypher system. You will be able to unlock eventually the ability to craft tier set items. We don't know more than that. We don't know, for example, are you going to be able to craft a normal tier set item, an heroic tier set item, or perhaps a mythic tier set item? Is there going to be an unlock in this Cypher system where you have to first unlock the normal version and then the heroic version and then the mythic version of the tier set, for example? We still don't know. We just know you will be able to obtain the tier sets from this system. The other parts of this system, of this Cypher mechanic / activity, is going to be more reminiscent of the old things we have seen before. They are coated in this new flavorful situation where you are meeting essentially a different race, a different species, and you can talk to them. You don't know what they are saying, you can't communicate with them, and as such you can't function very well in being able to have meaningful transactions with these entities, which is essentially the same as saying first you're gonna get 3 daily quests with them, and then once you unlock the second tier of speech or language with them, you're gonna get 5 daily quests, and then you're gonna get 7 daily quests. You know, it's the same process as many other reputations that we have seen over the years in this game, where at friendly you get a certain amount of quests and daily quests, and then at honored and revered and then exalted you get more and more and more. So it's pretty much the same concept, except coated in a more flavorful color, but that's pretty much what it's gonna be. We also have to see, and that is also going to be likely to, for example, what we have seen in the Maw, where higher reputation, higher standing with the faction is going to unlock a different zone. We have seen this with Venari in the Maw. Surprisingly, we haven't actually seen this in Cortia. We haven't really gotten extra zones in Cortia based on the archivist research reputation, but we did see it in the Maw before, so that is also a possible thing attached to this system. And now on to the last part that spawned this video, which is yet another thing attached to this system, which is going to be flying. Because unlike the Maw and unlike Cortia, we will actually be getting flying in this endgame zone. So if we go back, for example, to BFA, our first proper endgame zones were Mechagon and Najatar. Now, eventually, in both of them, you could fly. You also obtain flying in that patch so that you could go back and fly in the rest of the zones of BFA. Now, this is less important in Shadowlands because, as we pointed out, with Blizzard removing anima power from your character power upgrades, because now anima is not needed for you to empower your character in any way, nobody cares about doing world quests in the original Shadowlands zones anymore because they don't give you any power, so people just ignore them. But in BFA, it was slightly more important for you to be able to get flying, to do your Azerite power world quests and whatnot. Apart from that, you did get flying in Nazjatar and you did get flying in Mechagon, plus Mechagon already had the item you could easily get to be able to fly, and it was actually even better than the normal flying mount, so it was pretty cool. And then you went into Nyalotha, where you had the two new reworked zones for the patch, Uldum and the Valley of Eternal Springs, so that was also with flying enabled. We go into Shadowlands, and Demo doesn't have flying. In the next patch, Demo still continues to have no flying, and then Kortia right now has no flying, and there has been no announcement for Kortia receiving the ability to fly in 9.2. So this would be the first major zone that gets a meaningful flying enabled, because as pointed out, flying in the original Shadowlands zones is not as meaningful compared to the previous expansions, since the world quests in those areas are not as meaningful anymore. Now that you don't need to grind item world quests because Titan Forging doesn't exist, and now that you don't need to grind anima power world quests because they don't upgrade anything on your character, not really many people bother about these type of world quests. But flying in Zereth Mortis is going to be the first time where there is going to be flying in a zone where character power is going to matter, because Zereth Mortis, as pointed out, is going to have the double legendary system, it's going to have the craftable tier sets system, it is very likely going to have other type of rewards that we don't know yet. Of course, cosmetic stuff, pets, toys, tabards, mounts, it's still gonna be in there for sure. We are wondering at this point if any other character power rewards are going to be part of the zone. One particular question is going to be about the conduit upgrades and the socket item upgrades, whether or not they're gonna be in here in the first place. Now, we haven't even gotten a guaranteed mention about the fact that conduits are going to increase in item level. We do know that soulbinds are not going to increase, soulbinds are not going to extend their tree, there's not going to be any more nodes in the soulbinds and any more conduits to chase, but perhaps the item level is still going to increase, which would mean that there is likely going to be an item that allows you to fasten the process. And then the other part, the more important one, is your socket item. There's been no mention related to the fact that item slots are no longer going to have a socket available to them, so there is going to be very likely a socket item, which almost certainly at that point is going to drop, is going to be available to buy either in Zereth Mortis. So this is why I found all of this quite interesting, because compared to what we had previously in Shadowlands, we do seem to have many of these rewards and many of these new features that we're going to be able to go after, from the legendaries to the crafting to the potential socket item, etc., all concentrated in a single zone. Perhaps it's good that it is now, and it is bad that Kortia and Demo were not the same. Perhaps it's the opposite. We will have to see exactly how Zereth Mortis is going to play out. Just as a side note to finish, I do also believe Zereth Mortis is going to be quite larger than the two previous zones. Demo was pretty large, but it was heavily filled with impassable terrain, rocks, spikes, and buildings all over the place that you could not go over. So the actual walkable terrain was quite limited, and then Kortia was even smaller, so even then the flying was probably not even as needed, whereas the fact that flying is going to be available in Zereth Mortis makes me think the zone is going to be quite larger than the previous two. That being said, this is still up in the air. We will have to wait for whenever we're going to get the announcement for the PTR of the patch, and then eventually we will be able to check it ourselves to see how we are standing for the moment. Now, with this being said, we can take a break and we can stop. As usual, thank you guys for watching the video. If you want to continue supporting the channel, you can leave a like down below, as well as leaving a comment if you feel like. And for last, if you were born between January and June, you can also subscribe to the channel. See you guys soon, and in the meantime, well, I guess that all we can do is hope that flying is not gonna come 3 months into the patch. Blizzard, don't pull a blizzard on this one. Thanks.